Okay, copper. Copper,
Yeah.
29. Now, copper and iron. Iron's 26. Copper's 29. Right. Now, copper, here's what I do. I have pure copper vessel, okay? And I fill this with distilled water or demineralized water, and I put a very little bit of Celtic salt in the water and leave it overnight and drink this in the morning. I do the same with tin. Okay. Now, that one's tin, the other one's copper. Now, the reason why you put distilled water in that is so that the other minerals do not react with it in an unfavorable way. Okay. So, but it is not, it doesn't carry any charge. Distilled water has no charge. So in order for the copper to react with the distilled water, then you put some Celtic salt in there, and now that's going to carry an electrical charge. The other thing I do is I wear copper. So this is a copper, 100% pure copper bracelet there. There's another one that's got copper, brass, and zinc. You can see the three colors, copper, brass, and zinc. And on the other hand, I also have, this one is copper, 100% pure copper. Now, I have done shows on the number 26, iron. Yod-Heh Vah-Heh, Jehovah. Just to show you the relationships. So you've got Yod, He, Va, He. So hang on, Yod. Sorry, I did that wrong. Yod is like this. So Yod, He, Va, He. These come to 26, and this is Jehovah. Yod-Heh Vah-Heh, Jehovah, comes to 26, and in the Bible God says, I will rule the nations with an iron rod. Iron is 26. God comes to 26. Aleph, the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, Yod and Yod, 10 and 10. Vav is 6. Comes to 26. L, once you put a Hebrew L here, you've got Aleph L, that's the name for God. L comes to 13, 1 and 12. So we see here that iron has been promoted. God is iron, Jehovah is iron, Aleph, the first letter of the alphabet. Elohim comes to 52, which is twice 26, and that's God in plural. El, God singular, is 13. Elohim, 52. And 52, of course, is the number of cards you have in your card deck. So 26, all of these numbers, all of them go back to iron. Iron has been introduced to poison our blood, and we have red blood. So Adam also means iron, because in Hebrew, Adam is Ma'adim, and Ma'adim is Mars. If you put the R and the S in here, it's Mars Adam. Adam means red, Mars is red, Mars is the ruler of Aries, Mars's element is iron. Now,
and is there a relation with the iron added to our food, like in cereals and stuff like that? It's crazy the amount of iron that they add to the food these days.
Yes, to poison us. See, the elites have blue blood because they use copper, because they know that copper is the best conductor. And so rather than poisoning us with iron, we are all suffering with iron poisoning. we should be supplementing with pure copper, colloidal copper if possible, or this kind of copper, and then we will be able to actually use the iron, because iron builds up. You see, iron builds up and it stays in the system. So a lot of people are full of iron. They are poisoned by the iron. Their blood is red, which is poisoned blood, and it should be more toward this color, which is why we need copper. So rather than 26,
again, we see the blue and red shift stuff.
we do. Copper is blue, iron is red. So blue shift, red shift. So what we have is obviously copper has the ability to cause electricity to flow better. Iron is a good conductor too, of course, but we know of copper's properties, and copper is one of the only elements that actually knows what to do with the iron in your body to use it properly.
Yeah, that's true what you're saying, because in electricity, the wire that they use the most is copper. If you want a good electrical wire, you use copper. It's the most conductive, the most expensive one also. And when you go scrap your metal at the scrap, that's what they pay the most is copper. There got to be something with copper.
Yeah, copper. And copper is, as I said, is Venus's element. And 29 and 26, iron is Mars. So you can see the polarization. Jehovah, this God of war who shall shepherd the nations with an iron rod, this is the demiurgos. He is an iron-fisted God. Iron is oppressive. Okay, copper is it's more malleable, isn't it? You can get copper and you can bend it around. Iron doesn't like to bend, does it? It's rigid. Okay, so, and that's the demiurge is a rigid God. I'm not saying that the demiurge is evil and that we hate the demiurge. No, the demiurge is a cool guy. It's the creator of material worlds, and that is Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, and all of these guys who have their elements. And Mars is Jehovah, because Jehovah is the God of war. And so he is the iron God, okay? Now we want to get away from that God and go into the embrace of the Creator, which transcends all of this demiurgic iron talk and, manipulating talk and control talk. That is the God who truly frees, which is the Creator, the source creator.
So I'm wondering how you connect these elements that you pulled out, the larger named ones, with how would copper and francium go to, do those have correspondence? I mean, beyond Venus? And because I was thinking about how do you use these things to remediate, or how do we actually use the knowledge? We could easily use copper, I'm hearing, but how does it connect to these other elements? Because as you were talking about it, I was thinking about Venus, and I was thinking about the elements that we know go with the planets. So I'm just wondering, how do you connect the more obscure elements?
Yeah, very, very good. We probably know a lot more about copper than we know about francium. So I just said that copper is Venus's traditional astrological element, which it is. And then I showed how francium lines up with Venus in many, many ways. Well, what you will find is that some of these elements are octaves of other elements, and that they also belong to the principality or the rulership of certain planets, because that's how it works. Alchemists know this. True learned people who read books and who are learned understand this. You'll probably struggle to teach that with your average, foot soldier out there who's been educated in the system. They'll probably struggle with this and think, oh, well, if you're not a Dr. Santos, you don't have any PhDs, you can't think like that, and you're not allowed to use you know, you can't be relied upon for this information. You've got to go to the textbooks and everything like that. Fair enough. You know, textbooks are great because, yes, they do give us accurate tabulated knowledge that we can then, you know, use to interrelate things. So you would find that if you went through the periodic table, you would find 30 or 40 probably elements that resonate with Venus. And what you will discover is that each one of these elements will either be one of four things. And that's how you know that you are on top of your game when you understand these four things. There are four humors in the universe. And there are two active humors and two passive humors. The active humors are hot and cold. The passive humors are dry and moist. Okay? Dryness and moisture are passive, patience, and hot and cold are active agents in the universe. Now, remember I spoke about nitrogen. I said nitrogen is fire. How do I know that? Well, because it's ignite. It's ignitrogen. And the gen on the end is to generate. So if you've got ignis, we get the word igneous from that, igneous. Igneous rocks are what kind of rocks? Well, they're the ones that, like magma, they're the ones that come from fire. Fire has melted those rocks, and you can see the effect of fire. Therefore, those rocks are called igneous, because igni, which is fire, Agni means, well, Saint Agnes, the saint of the Lamb. Agnes is the Lamb. So igni in Latin, to ignite, is nitrogen. Therefore, nitrogen is hot and dry. So it has the active humor of hot, heat, and it has the passive humor of dryness. So nitrogen will also harmonize with other elements. Like it will harmonize so well with iron, because iron is also hot and dry. It's a hot and dry element. Copper is cool and moist. You see?
Right.
Cool and moist, because Venus is cool and moist. You can know these things. Mars is hot and dry, therefore iron must be hot and dry. So you must know your four astrological humors to understand that everything works like this. So when I do an astrological chart reading, which we're going to do at the end of this show, I will introduce some of this technology now, and I'll add some of this about the elements into today's chart reading to show you how I do chart readings. So if I have a look at someone's chart, you've got a chart like this. The AC is over here, the MC over here, the DC over here, and the IMC is here. So what you've got in astrology is, this is the first house, this is the second, and 12. And those are the houses, okay? So, now, the strong houses are called cardines, or angles. And they are the 1st and the 7th, the 10th, and the 4th. Now, so let's say that, okay, let's put Aries over here in the 7th house, Aries. Okay, in the 7th house. Now, Aries is a fire sign, so it's hot and dry. Now, Saturn is cold and dry. So if Saturn is in Aries, let's put Saturn here. Looks like the Hebrew lamed with a little cross on it. There you go. This is Hebrew for L, the letter L, and this is Saturn's glyph. Same thing, because L is Saturn. Okay. Of course, there's a lot of pseudo-syncretists or fake syncretists out there who will laugh at that because they think that L is something else, and then L is Saturn. L is the sun, L is the moon, L is Mercury, because when you explain syncretism properly, you can understand this. Many people will fail to understand it due to their undeveloped soul, mind, heart, and everything. They're just underdeveloped. And so they think they know, but they do not know. Forever learning, like, you know, you go to Danny Wilton's channel, you'll be learning rubbish forever, but you'll never come to an accurate knowledge of truth. Same with Cullen Smith, same with Christopher Lord. Their channels are forever learning, but never coming to an accurate knowledge of truth. That's in the scriptures. So now Saturn is cold and dry in Aries. Saturn hates Aries because he's too cold. Saturn loves to be in Libra. Libra is opposite. What's Libra's symbol? There's Libra, and here's Aries over here. So now let's say there's Mars is over here in Cancer, and it's squaring with Saturn. Now a square, a 90 degrees angle, is very harsh. So if Mars is squaring with Saturn in Aries, and he is cold, whereas Aries is hot and dry, this individual is probably likely to get headaches because Aries is the cerebrum, and if Saturn is in Aries, which is cold, it doesn't like to be in, Saturn hates Aries. So that coldness will cause some disturbances. And I usually, when I do the charts of individuals who have Saturn in Aries, are badly aspecting, because this is a harsh aspect, usually those people have headaches and problems, right? So what do? Well, you administer infusions like tea or crystals or tissue salts that are hot and dry to bring the balance back, because this area of the body requires hot and dry. Aries is hot and dry. So when Saturn transits Aries, every 30 years it goes around the ecliptic, every 30 years, and when it's in Aries, those people have that disturbance of Saturn, that coldness in their cerebrum. And so what you do, Paracelsus 500 years ago, Marsilio Ficino 500 years ago, they cured people with 100% effective rate by knowing the four humours and knowing when a cold planet is in a hot sign, you have to bring the balance back. And so let's say Mars is in Virgo. Well, Virgo is the intestines. Okay, so Mars is going to, Virgo is an earth sign, and earth is cold and dry. Water is cold and wet, cold and moist, but earth is cold and dry. So if Mars is in Virgo, badly aspecting, Mars is hot and dry, Virgo is cold and dry, you need to understand that that planet is disturbing Virgo's organs, which are the intestines. These people will have a very, very fiery problem with indigestion. They will have reflux, acid reflux. They'll be taking all kinds of pills and big pharma toxins to try and squash all of their indigestion problems, when all they have to do is just add hot or dry or cold or hot. And that's what your Chinese practitioners do. They tell you to, they do your pulse. So they check your pulse, then they look at your tongue, And that's all they do. And they know how to fix you. They say, your liver's too hot. Here's some dandelion. Your kidneys are too hot. Drink some dandelion tea, because dandelion is cooling. Okay? So you've got to know your teas, you've got to know your crystals, you've got to know your tissue salts, and those are the three things that I work with. There you go. Crystals, you can see I've got wood and copper around here. Why? Because those are the elements that Aryans, hot and dry, require. So I use those elements.
So maybe not everybody would want to do the cold and moist of the copper. There might be another metal that would be better suited to some people that are already cool and moist, right?
Exactly. So,
Cool. Yeah.
So what you have to do now is look at the chart. Okay. Now, a good doctor, he doesn't give you something for the flu if you walk in there and all you've got is a sore throat. Well, that's just one symptom. You need runny nose, headache, congested chest. You need to feel dizzy. You need to have, the doctor needs, you know, he sees you've got a sore throat. He sees you've got congested. He sees 10 different things and he makes a proper diagnosis. You can't just look at someone's chart here and say, oh, Saturn's in Aries. This guy has to counteract Saturn's coolness with Aries fire. This person may not get headaches. I've done the chart of people with Saturn in Aries that have never had a headache in their life, but they've got other things that Saturn has actually provoked by being in Aries, and you've got to know the full. You can't just pick sore throat and say, oh yeah, you've got a flu. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Now, if this is kept hot and dry, I was thinking that's why I was laughing, and I was thinking that's maybe why they program us with HD signals. HD is everywhere today. Everything is HD everywhere. They has to do something with this for sure.
Well, your Wi-Fi signals, they are all square wave. Right? And they're not even beautiful sine wave like that. That's your Wi-Fi. Now that rips through the elements of your body, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, the four main elements. This wave is not very friendly to those elements. Those elements do not understand this. This is hot and dry only. This is a very hot and dry wave. This one is cool. This one is cool and moist. But the perfect sine wave is the longitudinal wave. We don't need this. We don't need Wi-Fi. That's the scalar wave of Tesla, free energy. That's the longitudinal pulse of the universe. This is a wave, but here we have compression and rarefaction. And what is that? Compression is blue shift, rarefaction is red shift, and it all happens along one longitudinal line, which is hot and moist. Jupiter, Thor. Thor is the only planet in the cosmos that is hot and moist. Sun is hot and dry. Mars is hot and dry. Only Jupiter is hot and moist. And that your plants grow when it's hot and when they've got moisture. Try putting your beautiful plants, your tomato and watermelons, try putting them in the cold weather and don't water them, ever. No moisture, no heat, and you see what happens. We need it's not just that hot and moist should only exist and no coldness and no dryness. No. See, Saturn is cold and dry. Jupiter is the greater benefic in astrology because he's hot and dry, hot and moist. Saturn is the greater malefic in astrology. He is the evil one. Why? Well, because he's cold and dry. Just ask your plants what they think of cold and dry. And then you'll know the effect of Saturn. Saturn is cold and dry. And hence...
So, go ahead.
No, I'm finished.
So would you say that it would be good for us to limit our exposure to Wi-Fi? Like I have a Wi-Fi thing, a modem, what it's called, that thing that provides Wi-Fi, the router. The router. I have a router here. Would you suggest to only operate a cable internet, or or not freak out with all this?
Brother, I've got a whole
Cable,
heap in my cottage. When people come to do internet cafe in my cottage here, which every day there's folks coming down from the hill to do internet here, I say to them, you hook up one of these, or you have to go elsewhere to get your internet, because
Okay.
I will not do Wi-Fi around my holy temple. No way. Wire up.
Okay. Mark Queen, when she came here, Mark Queen knew about that, because when she came here at night, she was unplugging everything, all the internet. I used to wake up in the morning and everything was down. And she used to tell me, "Hey, it's me. I unplug it because I don't want to sleep with the Wi-Fi on." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, she might be right," but I never knew now to the extent that you're explaining it tonight with the waves and that.